Okay, so a common hurdle some of my clients have been facing lately is how to actually set a boundary, like how to actually put the words that they now know they want to say into practice. And what they're getting caught on is how they feel, right? Is their fear of conflict, which is why we are people pleasers in the first place. We want to avoid conflict. And setting a boundary feels like we're going to put a limit on something and we're going to say no to someone and they're going to get outraged. And we think, yeah, that's like baked in conflict, like no go, don't want to do it. So after you get clear about what you want to say, then you have to practice saying it or actually say it to the person. So we are running into, my clients are running into, and I do this as well, big feelings that come up and block us from setting a boundary. So I really want to do just a little short exercise and talk to you about how to stay with your feelings when you are setting a boundary. There's a couple of things I want to bring in with us. One is going to be mindfulness. I want to walk you through a guided meditation. And another is going to be talking about parts of you, the people-pleasing part of you. If you're curious about parts, what I'm referring to is internal family systems. You can go to my YouTube channel, Power to the Pleasers, and there's a video about IFS. Don't want to go into it here. I just want to say that there is a part of your personality that is a people pleaser, that wants to make sure that people like you, that people aren't upset with you, that you always seem available or positive, whatever. We all know that we have certain qualities and characteristics that create our people-pleasing self. So I'm going to talk about that part of us, and I'm referring to internal family systems when I do that. So if you want more background on IFS, go to YouTube, Power to the Pleasers, and you can find that video there. Otherwise, let's talk about how to talk yourself through, aka stay with, a feeling that feels discomfort or feels uncomfortable. And I think about discomfort as kind of like an edgy place that we get close to. And one thing that I loved about my yoga teacher training is we talked a lot about the edge. So in a yoga pose, let's say you're doing a forward fold, because most of us have tight hamstrings. So you're sitting on the floor, legs are out in front of you. You're bending at the waist, kind of bringing nose toward the knee, and you're going to meet your hamstrings, right? And they're usually going to be tight. So that is an edge. You are meeting an edge, kind of like a muscle limitation. And a lot of times we will pause there, and the teacher might say, like, just breathe through it, pause, slow down, and then just move deeper as your body relaxes. That's how you work with an edge. What happens most of the time for us, like if we're not on the yoga mat doing this, is we meet an edge, in other words, a fear of conflict when we're trying to set a boundary. We meet that edge and we hightail it out of there, right? And that could look like really just getting out of the conversation, like kind of fight, freeze. We could flight. It could be freezing. We could just shut down. And there's also fawn now, which is exactly what people-pleasing behavior is. It's smiling, disarming the person, doing what's needed to be done to save your nervous system from having to go into one of those fight, flight, or freezes. So we're going to meet an edge when we're setting a boundary. We're going to meet discomfort, and that discomfort is not going to be muscle discomfort like a yoga pose. It's going to be a feeling discomfort, and our nervous system is going to start getting really activated, and most of the time we just go away from that, or we close up, or we say yes. And so if you're working on setting a boundary, those are things that you don't want to have to do anymore, and you don't want to do them automatically. So we want to be able to talk ourselves through the feeling of discomfort when we kind of start to feel our heartbeat go faster, when we're like, oh God, I got to tell this person, no, this is not going to work for me. We want to work with that edge or the discomfort in our nervous system, in our emotional system of feeling fear. So we know that we want to speak up. We've gotten to the point where we know what we want to say. We're just going to pretend this. And now we want that strength inside to be able to stand there, say no, participate in a conversation, be present, and not have to choose fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Okay, what I want you to do first with this, we're going to do some writing, and then we're going to do guided meditation, and we're actually going to mix those up. But if you want to pause the video, that's fine to do the writing. So when we're working with an edge, we want to slow down. Like the yoga instructor would say, just stop for a second, breathe, let your muscles relax a little bit, and then move further into it. That's what we're going to do today, is we're going to start by slowing down and taking a deeper look into what we believe about boundary setting, okay? And what's happened in the past when we've tried to set boundaries and it didn't work. So I want you to use your imagination and your reflection, and I want you to go back to a recent time that you had an opportunity to say something, or you had a desire to say something and it was shut down. Okay, so I really want you to take this moment, think about recently the scenario where you had the opportunity to say something but you didn't. And I want you to write down what your mind was doing in that scenario, okay? So this is where the reflection comes in. You might not have realized you were thinking in the time, because a lot of times we're just in that moment and we're feeling very reactive. But I want you to think about what your mind was going through, what your mind was processing, and write it down. I'm going to keep going with the video, but you can definitely pause and come back. The next thing I want you to write down is what your body felt in that recent moment where you had an opportunity to state a boundary and you chose not to. Then I want you to write down any emotional words that go with those experiences. So we're looking at mental, physical, and emotional. This is going to be really important, right? So it's kind of like mind, heart, and gut, okay? These are all three great places to check in with yourself when you're doing reflection, and then moving that out into present moment experiences, places to check in with yourself. Okay, we need the reference of what happened so that we can be able to catch those cues that they're happening again, but more so in real time. And that's going to make sense in a minute. So I want you to think about the part of you that is the people pleaser, right? The part of you that is the one that kind of just smiles and nods and says yes and agrees to something that you don't want to do. The part that tries to make other people comfortable over your discomfort. And you're trying to make other people comfortable so when they relax, you won't feel uncomfortable. So when you think about that people pleaser part, the reason I want you to see it as a part of you is because I almost want you to see yourself in this reflection, kind of like you were watching a TV show, right? And you're like, okay, this is me. I was talking to my manager and this was what was going down. This was the environment. This is what I was feeling. This is what I can imagine or remember I was thinking. This is the, few emotions that were going on with it. And that is a part of me that took over and said yes to an extra project, even though my calendar is full right now. Like, there was a part of me that was trying to please, trying to disarm this person. And I want you to see that part of you as a separate part of you for a second. The reason I want you to do that is because when you're in that people-pleasing part, when you're kind of automatically doing those people-pleasing behaviors, you don't notice any of this stuff. It's all just pinging and you're being reactive. So remember, we're slowing down and we're getting the details. Mind, heart, gut, what you're thinking, what your emotions are, what your physical sensations are. We're slowing all that down to get cues so that we can catch those cues closer to time. Okay. I want you now to take a moment and write down what this part of you, the people-pleasing part of you, believes about speaking up or setting a boundary. And I'm going to play along with you and fill in some blanks. And again, you can pause and do this on your own. If I was going to ask my people pleaser part what it thinks about speaking up, it would say it's dangerous. And I want to expand on that question and say, what are you afraid will happen if you speak up? And this people pleasing part of me will say, this person's going to get upset with me. They're going to get mad at me. They're going to think I'm selfish. They're going to think any number of things that I personally do not want people to think about me. So what we're doing right now is we're looking at our belief system, and we're stepping away and thinking about this as a part of us, and we're thinking about almost like interviewing this people pleaser part of us and saying, when you take over and I don't get to speak up, what are you believing will happen if we do speak up? What are you afraid will happen if we do speak up? Okay? So pause, write that down, or at least make a note and come back to that after we're done and fill in what your belief system is about speaking up. Now I want you to think about past experiences that have helped you create this belief system, okay? That have helped this people pleaser part create this belief that if it speaks up, bad things are going to happen. List out past experiences that have helped create the belief that your personal truth is that if I speak up, I'm going to get criticized, I'm going to get shamed, I'm going to get blasted with anger. Okay? So again, you can pause or you can just write down that question and come back to it. Okay, so this is very important information. Both of these lists are going to be extremely important for you to get out of your head the thoughts that take you into feeling something. And by feeling something, I mean both physical gut and emotional heart. We have to catch these thoughts because they set off this chain reaction that gets our nervous system all churned up, right? And then we're having this feeling of like, danger, 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 I'm completely uncomfortable, and we flight, freeze, or fawn, okay? I'm leaving out the fight part because I just don't feel like that fits for us. If it does for you, you can include it. So we're starting with thoughts, and we're looking at how that sets off that domino effect of what it makes us feel like physically and emotionally, and then our behavior comes from what we feel physically or emotionally, okay? So these lists are important. Okay, now I want to take you through a short guided meditation, okay? I would normally make this a little bit longer, but I don't want to bore you. So I just want you to go through this guided imagery, if you will, and yeah, just use it as experience. You can come back to this video if you want and stretch it out a little bit longer, but for the most part, I'm gonna take us through what goes on for us when we feel something uncomfortable. So, little disclaimer is we're gonna practice feeling that discomfort from the experience that we used just a second ago. We're gonna go back to that. So you might feel uncomfortable, okay? If you start to feel like, oh my God, my nervous system is taking over and I'm feeling hijacked, just stop, right? It's like you're doing your forward fold and you met the edge. Just stop, take some breaths, pause the video, do whatever you need to, okay? I'm gonna keep going through this because we're not in a meditation class, but I do wanna give you the experience of actually feeling it instead of me just talking to you and you having this cognitive sort of intellectual understanding of what's going on. Okay? All right. So if you've never meditated before, no big deal, right? I just want you to find a comfortable spot. If you feel like closing your eyes, fantastic. If that is uncomfortable to you, just find a spot that you can kind of gaze at. It might be on the floor, it might be in front of you. I just don't want you to be like engaging with your environment too much. I want you to kind of turn inwards. Okay, so let's just take a breath or two. And there's 3 places that I like to check in when I'm first doing any kind of guided meditation. And that is my feet, my seat, and my head. So just for a moment, check in with your feet, wherever they may be. Just intentionally feel them a little bit. Then check in with your seat. Where are you sitting? Is it soft? Is it firm? How your back feels in your seat. And then check in with the head. I usually like to just focus on 2 places, and that's where I just happen to hold my tightness, as my eyes and my jaw. And I just remind myself to soften them. So just take another breath in and out. Take a moment to pull up your reflection of that time that we just went to, that you opted out of speaking up. No judgment. Just give yourself a minute to take in the particulars of that situation again. The location, the people involved. You could even get kind of detailed if you want to really go there, you know, what you were wearing, the temperature of the room, any sounds, anything that stood out about the description of the room, anything that's just going to get you more connected to that time and that experience. So I want you to shift to how your body feels. I want you to locate in your body where you feel the reaction of, oh my gosh, I should speak up right now, or oh my gosh, there's an opportunity here I need to say something. I want you to feel first in your body where that reactivity is going off, where that activation is happening. For me, it's usually in my chest. It's a fluttery feeling. And I usually hold my breath, but I don't even realize that until I look back and think like, gosh, I wasn't breathing. So just notice where in your body you feel the reactivity. And so here's where the mindfulness practice comes in. I want you just to note, just make a little note in your head what you're aware of, what you're observing. Jittery, tight, there's nothing wrong with what you're noticing. There's nothing wrong with whatever word you use to make a note of it. We're just checking in, okay? If there's more than one place you feel sensation and reactivity in the body, that's fine. But I want you to kind of just choose one place and just put your awareness there, put your attention there. We're just going to hang out there for a moment with the sensation. We know this is an uncomfortable sensation. We also know we can stop at any time. But we are going to hang out with the sensation a little bit more. And how we're going to do this is we're going to describe it. So we can use a color, if there's any kind of color associated with it. If there's any kind of temperature. Sometimes when my chest gets really fluttery from being nervous, I feel a little hot, you know. So if there's a temperature that goes with that sensation, maybe even the shape the sensation takes, the space it takes up. Like if it's in my chest, it usually is like, right above, you know, between my chest bone and my collarbone. So just if they're at that location, you know, if there's kind of a shape, sometimes it almost feels like a cloud to me. It's just kind of moving or smoke or something. So color, temperature, shape, just any images that come with the sensation. And just stay with the sensation for another breath or two and just let whatever words come up be the words. Don't try to find them. Don't try to make it more than it is. Just simple notice. Okay? Whatever comes up is fine. Now we're going to notice how you feel towards this feeling. I love this question because this is going to let you know, are you in a reactivity? If you want to move away from the feeling, flight. If it's paralyzing to you, freeze. You know, how do you feel towards what you're noticing, what you've been sitting with and describing? Remember, you can always take a break, take a breath, pause this, come back. We are staying with discomfort, right? This is the thing that we've gone away from automatically, and that kind of makes us go back into people pleasing or go into people pleasing automatically. So we're trying not to go into automatic people pleasing. We're trying to put some space between the stimulus, what's happening in front of us, right? The environment, what our senses are taking in, and our response to it, our reactivity to it. Okay? So how are you feeling towards having the feeling? Sometimes I get mad at myself for having a jittery chest. I'm just like, why can't I just be a strong person and just say what I need to say, right? There's a lot of times I get tired of having it. Why does this drain my energy so much? Why is this such a big deal for me? Other people probably don't have this. Let's just notice how you feel towards the feeling. Gathering data. Okay, now we're going to take just another breath or two, and it's going to be kind of like a palate cleanser, if you will. I mean, we're just doing a lot of sensation work, and we're maybe even really in it strongly. And so we're going to shift a little bit and take a breath or two to do that. So let me just run down what we've done so far. We've remembered an example from the past. We've located in the body. We've focused on it for a bit. We've explored it by describing it. We've checked in to see how we normally feel towards having an experience like that. We know it's the people pleaser part of us that steps in and tries to disarm and cut down any conflict. So you've stayed with a part. You've stayed with this part of you. You've separated from it. You've looked at it as if you were watching yourself in a TV show or a movie. But you know exactly what that character is going through. That's mindfulness itself. I can see it and observe it, and I also know what it feels like. So you just did a mindfulness practice. And it can feel pretty intense. But you just worked with it. You just worked with curiosity, and which is another mindfulness quality. And in that curiosity, we're now kind of recognizing like we just moved through that. We just lived through feeling that sensation and feeling it deeply, like feeling it so much and spending so much time with it that we described it. We came up with words for it. So I want you to check in and see how the sensation feels now. Okay. Sensation might be very active and intense, especially if mindfulness isn't really familiar to you. But if it's been tolerable for yourself just to stay with it and to ask yourself these questions, you might actually notice that it feels less intense than when you first felt it. It could even be 5% less intense, and that's fantastic. Generally, when we stay with something and we don't automatically shame ourselves for it or criticize ourselves for it, and we kind of ask our minds to join with us and help us investigate what we're going through, it tends to help the mind slow down a little bit and get more focused. It also tends to give some attention to a sensation that we normally get the heck out of Dodge when we feel it. And those two things, slowing the mind down and giving attention to something that needs our attention, can help us relax a little bit. It's kind of like if you had a little scared kid inside and you didn't ignore it, you didn't run away from it, you didn't get mad at it, you just said oh, tell me what's going on. I want to hear what's happening. And you stayed with that little kid. That acknowledgement and attention is a game changer for our feelings. Okay, so I want you just to ask this part of yourself, this people pleaser part, what would feel helpful when you're in this position, people pleaser part, where you feel like you need to take over and help me and not have me feel conflict or anything uncomfortable. What would help you, people pleaser part? What would be soothing? What would be nurturing? What would be kind to do or say to yourself, to the people pleaser part in you when the feeling comes up? If you need to pause and write those ideas down, which I recommend, you can do that right now. You can kind of shift out of the guided imagery, guided meditation. And I just want you to let go of practical options for what to do or say to be nice to yourself. I want you just to let it really just be like, whatever I need, I want to write it down, right? Sometimes when I do this particular part of inquiry and exercise of helping myself, I put my hand on my heart. I just make contact with a part of me that kind of holds the sensation, and I just sort of remind myself, like, hey, I'm here for myself. I might not be here for myself a lot, but I'm here for myself right now. And I just allow myself to imagine what having my own personal version of support and kindness would feel like. And so I invite you to do that right now. What would feel helpful, supportive? So let's move away from that gently and just kind of release the images, release the questions. Let the sensations kind of soften. Take a breath and just let go of that meditation or imagery. So you've got your list of beliefs and past experiences that have helped you create those beliefs. You've got your ideas around support, what would feel supportive or soothing or caring towards yourself. And I want you to realize, like, you just did an archaeological dig inside, right? You've just helped yourself see that the knee-jerk reactions we have around boundary setting are mostly about uncomfortable feelings, which really show up in body sensations, and mental thoughts, beliefs that have a tendency to bring up things from the past that were uncomfortable, that we probably didn't have support around. So we kind of categorize them as, I don't want to ever feel that again. And we see that boundary setting brings up this sort of knee-jerk kind of reaction to hard or uncomfortable emotions. Okay, so you've just done a mindfulness archaeological dig, and you've got some lists of things that you can take to your coach or your therapist or whoever, and somebody safe that you want to talk to, and kind of start to dissect these a little bit. Again, it's not about how the other person is going to act so much as what we think and reference from past experiences that have been uncomfortable and that we project onto the present experience. And it's also more about how we take care of what we feel versus whether that person says, yes, I understand you, your boundary is justified, or whether they say, nope, that's not going to work. I need you to stay late tomorrow and work, even if you can't. It's not about what they say to make us feel better. It's about what we feel and how we take care of what we are feeling. Okay, so I hoped that really gave you a little bit of some more depth information about what happens off the cuff, reactively. I really want you to think about the next time you're in boundary setting mode, that you don't expect yourself just to go in because you've done this, however long we've been together, 30-minute exercise, and be able to start spouting off boundaries and have this like strong oak tree kind of center inside. I want you to use these points, head, heart, gut, beliefs, past experiences, nurturing, soothing ideas. I want you to use these things to then gain more awareness after the fact. So again, do reflection of the next time you're in boundary setting and you're like, crap, I did it again. No problem. There's no judgment. Come back to this exercise and just keep helping yourself move through just little bits of it each time, right? To where when you're in a situation in the present moment, one of these parts is going to kind of poke up and go, hey, I want to let you know your chest is jittery. And it's like, oh my God, I can feel it right now, right? So you're in mindfulness. And later on, you can kind of be like, gosh, what would have really been helpful for me now that I noticed that, right? Do I need to say to someone, let me think about that for a minute and remove myself from the situation, right? I'm not flight. I'm not running away like I used to. I'm noticing that I'm uncomfortable and I'm taking care of myself because I also answered those questions of what would be nurturing, and I'm moving myself away from that situation because what would be nurturing is giving myself some time to think through, breathe, look at my calendar, and then come back. So everything you've done here today, just the tip of the iceberg, okay? Just planting seeds about options that you have so that you don't get automatically shut down from a discomfort and uncomfortable feeling when you're thinking about setting boundaries, okay? Obviously, I am here to help with this. So if it feels like, you know what, there's a couple of things in this I really want to dive deeper into, let me know. And we can use this exercise as a reference, and we can go into it even more and on a more personal level. All right. Thank you, people-pleasing friends. I hope, again, this has been helpful. If you have any comments, any questions, please reach out. You can find me on Instagram, Power to the Pleasers. Same thing on Facebook, Power to the Pleasers. There's a theme here. I want pleasers to feel more power. YouTube has got some other great little tidbits for how to get through some things, or the website, Power to the Pleasers. Okay, enjoyed it. Hope you did. Talk to you soon.